My name is Richard Langston. I'm 85 years old, and this is my final confession. The air in this hospital room smells faintly of antiseptic and something else I can't quite describe, perhaps the smell of time running out. The walls are pale and bare, save for a small cross hanging above the bed that one of the nurses put up last week. The beeping of the heart monitor is the only sound accompanying my thoughts now. I used to be afraid of silence. Now it comforts me. At least, in silence, I don't have to pretend. If you could confess one thing today, what would it be? Share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who might need your truth. I grew up in a world that taught me to fear who I really was. I was raised in Mississippi, in a small town where everyone knew each other by name, and reputation meant more than truth. My father was a local preacher known for his fire and brimstone sermons and unwavering discipline. My mother was gentle, always reminding us to be kind, even when it was hard. I remember sitting on the old wooden pews at church, swinging my legs and watching my father preach. People looked at him like he carried the voice of God, and I looked at him like he was the gatekeeper to heaven. So I studied his every word. I learned to smile when I was hurting, to nod when I had questions, and to lie when the truth didn't fit the mold. I carried those lessons with me through my teenage years, into college, and eventually into marriage. I met Linda at a church picnic when I was 23. She had auburn hair, kind eyes, and a laugh that made everything feel lighter. I loved her. Truly, in the way a man loves a woman he respects, admires, and wants to protect. But even then, I knew I wasn't being entirely honest with her, or myself. There's no easy way to say this. And at my age, there's no reason left to avoid it. When I was 24 years old, shortly after our first wedding anniversary, I began counseling a young man at the church named Joseph. He was 21, just a few years younger than me. Troubled, soft-spoken, poetic. He had come seeking help, guidance, salvation, healing. Instead, I gave him fear, not his, but mine. He'd sit in the third row of my office by the window. His hands always fidgeted with the edge of his sleeve when he spoke. He talked about pain, about rejection, about wanting to be whole again. And as I listened, I found something stirring inside me, something I had buried so deeply I believed. It was dead. I started looking forward to those sessions, not as a pastor, not even as a friend, but as a man who was realizing that he had built his life on a foundation of denial. I felt something for Joseph, something more than compassion. I fought it, I prayed over it, I fasted, I begged God to take it away, but it only grew. It wasn't lust. It was connection, a deep, aching tenderness, a longing to be known fully and still accepted. One night, after a long session, Joseph thanked me for helping him feel less alone. Then he placed his hand over mine, just for a moment, just long enough to break the dam. I pulled away. I stood up. I told him we could no longer meet. I said it wasn't appropriate. I said it was for his sake. But the truth is, I was. Terrified of what people would say, terrified of losing everything, my wife, my church, my children, my name. Joseph nodded. He didn't argue. He left that night with tears in his eyes, and I never saw him again, and yet he never really left. I saw him in every sermon I gave on forgiveness. I saw him in the eyes of every lonely soul who came to me for counsel. I saw him when I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. Linda never knew. Or maybe she did. Maybe she saw the weight in my eyes, the distant look I wore some nights as I stared out the window, unable to sleep. But she never asked, and I never told. We had 2 children, Paul and Sarah. They were my pride, my joy. I built them a life filled with rules and structure and weekly church attendance. I taught them what I was taught, that morality was about appearances, that salvation came through control. But I never taught them how to be real. How could I? I didn't know how myself. Years turned into decades. I became a respected figure. I baptized dozens, married couples, buried friends, preached hundreds of sermons about grace. and all the while I carried this secret like a stone in my chest. When Linda passed away 5 years ago, something inside me crumbled. I found myself standing in our empty bedroom, staring at her side of the bed, and realizing that I had loved her as best I could, but I had never been free. And, because of that, neither had she. Grief has a way of peeling back layers you didn't know existed. And mine revealed a truth I could no longer ignore. I was a good man, but I was not an honest man. For a long time, I thought the two were the same. I thought that if I fulfilled my duties, kept my promises, stayed faithful to my family, then the truth of who I was didn't matter. But it does. God doesn't ask for perfection, He asks for truth. And the truth is, I was afraid. I lived in fear of rejection, fear of hell, fear of disappointing those who looked up to me. But in the end, it wasn't rejection or judgment that haunted me. It was the silence I chose, the silence I carried. I want to speak now, not because I expect to be praised, but because I need to be free before I leave this world. To my children, I hope you can forgive me. I hope you understand that I loved your mother with everything I had, but I also lived with a secret that ate away at me. To Joseph, if you're still alive, I hope you found peace. I hope you found someone who saw you completely and loved you, without fear. And to anyone listening, especially those my age, don't wait. Don't wait until you're staring at the ceiling of a hospital room, wondering if the people you love ever really knew you. Speak now, speak gently, but speak truth. I don't know what's waiting for me on the other side, but I believe in a God who sees all and still loves, a God who understands brokenness, a God who knows that even a lie can be forgiven when it's finally brought into the light. I've made peace with my past, not because it was perfect, but because I've finally stopped pretending. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. And remember, your truth, your voice, your story, it matters more than you think.